Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So it was March 2021 that I purchased my Thrustmaster Airbus Sidestick. So I figured it would be a good time to talk about this stick after 3 years of ownership and try to figure out, was it worth it, and is it the best cheap joystick for Microsoft Flight Simulator? So we could use a little bit of context here. When I bought the stick, this channel didn't exist. I hadn't even heard of the likes of fly-by-wire, I hadn't used a flight sim in a number of years, I was pretty much starting at zero. And that's an important point to remember, because a key point that I want to get across to you in this video is that this stick can stay with you as you grow as a flight simmer. To best explain how it achieves this, we should look at my current setup. So breaking it down, in addition to the stick, we've got a yoke, we've got a throttle system, and we've got my rudder pedals. All of these extra bits of kit are super nice to have, and I would be absolutely gutted to lose them. But the reality is, if they did all disappear, and all I had was my side stick, I could still control the throttles, I could still apply rudder input, I could still set my flaps, speed brakes, etc. straight from the side stick. It wouldn't be as fancy, but it would work. The great thing about this stick is that it gives you everything you need to get going with the hobby. If you're starting out with the sim, or if you need to stick to a budget, this stick can get you a solid all-round experience. You don't need to spend a fortune on extra gear. Now, if you're like me and you end up falling deep down into the rabbit hole, you can end up buying the throttles, the pedals, heck, you can even run a yoke alongside it like I do. But that doesn't make the stick a less worthy part of your setup. I use this stick all the time when I'm flying Airbus. I mostly fly the Phoenix A320, which is a super detailed third-party add-on aircraft, and it flies great with this stick. If I'm flying something like a Boeing, I'll choose to use the yoke instead, but for a number of months I flew the PNDG 737 using this stick, and it was absolutely fine. The takeaway here, I guess, is that I'm just a giant fool that can't stop buying flight sim gear. We should also talk about pricing. Obviously, pricing changes all the time, but at the time of recording, the going rate here in the UK seems to be around £60. I've seen them drop to around 50 here in the UK, so if you keep your eyes open, you could find yourself a deal, but even at 60 quid, that's pretty awesome value. I'll leave an affiliate link in the video description if you are genuinely in the market for one of these sticks. Using the link helps support the channel at no additional cost to you. It really does help a ton with running things over here, and it is massively appreciated. But as I said, only if you're genuinely in the market. Looking a little bit closer at the stick itself, the first thing you'll notice is that you get a ton of buttons, which you can use for things like gear up, gear down, extending, retracting flaps, deploying speed brakes, all the usual stuff. And if you're like me, you'll probably have some buttons left over spare. I know I certainly did. A little bit further down, and you can see we have a throttle slider. Now, I'll be the first to say this is not the most sturdy of things. It doesn't have any climb gates or anything like that. It does have markings on the unit for a reverse thrust area, and you can sort of feel like a little lump as you slide down into that area. Again, this isn't the greatest, so temper your expectations, but keep in mind, this is a 60 quid stick and it gets the job done and the price is right. Moving up top, we have a couple of buttons, a big red one for the autopilot disconnect, and the other one I use for switching between internal and external views. You can map this stuff however you want within the sim, but that's kind of the default out of the box experience. But what is a really nice feature is how Thrustmaster provide two sets of these buttons, one in a left-handed configuration and one for the right-handed config. If you look at my setup here, you can see that I've gone for the captain's position, so I fly with the stick in my left hand and I control my throttles with my right hand, but the choice is yours, so it's a really nice touch from Thrustmaster to give you the option for this. There's also a hat switch on the top, so you can move the camera around inside the cockpit. This is handy if you just want to kind of quickly push it to the left and look out the left window, maybe to check if a taxiway is clear or something like that. Around the front, we've got two buttons, a big old trigger and a smaller button just above it. So for me, I've taken to using the trigger as my push to talk on VATSIM, so I can speak to the air traffic controllers, and the smaller button just above it is a view reset switch. So that's what it defaults to anyway, out of the box, or it did for me at least. So this is a really handy way, if you've been moving the camera around inside the cockpit, you can just click that button and then it puts you straight back into the default camera position. And lastly, we have the ability for the stick to twist, and this is how you interact with the rudder system. Obviously, if you want to apply a left rudder, you twist the stick to the left, and for the right well, I'm sure you can get how that works. Another nice touch is this button here. It doesn't actually do anything within the sim, but should you do what I did and buy yourself a separate set of rudder pedals, essentially making the twist functionality redundant, pushing this switch down locks the stick and it stops it from twisting anymore. Now that's really handy, and it kind of harkens back to my earlier point whereby this stick can give you pretty much everything you need out of the box to get simming. But it's almost like there's this understanding from Thrustmaster that flight sim setups expand and change over time. And this feature, along with the ability to switch out the left and right-handed configs with the buttons on top there, are super welcome features in my book. This stick really is a stick that can grow with you over time, and as your setup, it expands and changes over time. Or it could simply be the only item in your setup. So it's a super dynamic, really affordable piece of kit. So what are the drawbacks? There's got to be some. Well, speaking about the stick's twist functionality to do the rudder inputs, mine developed a fault outside of its warranty period whereby the sensor that detects when the stick is being twisted has gone a bit weird. It behaves very erratically, making it effectively useless and problematic because it can apply random rudder input when I'm not actually wanting any at all. And obviously when I do go to apply rudder input with the stick, you don't get the rudder input you were expecting. Now, this doesn't really matter to me because of course I've bought rudder pedals and I've unmapped the rudder input from the twist on the stick, so it doesn't cause any problems in the sim. I simply don't need to twist my stick anymore, so it's not a problem for me. However, if you had this stick and you didn't have any rudder pedals and obviously you used the twist functionality to do the rudder on the plane, that would be a big problem. This is kind of a known thing, I think. Looking around online, there are guides where you can attempt to do a fix yourself. But obviously keep in mind that you could break the entire thing if you mess it up. And if you're in warranty, I would obviously go to Thrustmaster and not even attempt fixing it yourself. Anyway, but as I'm out of warranty, maybe I'll do another video detailing me trying to fix it just for the exercise. I've seen a few other people complain that this stick feels a little bit too light in that there isn't enough resistance when moving the stick. Now, to me, I don't find this an issue. Like I said, I fly mostly the Phoenix A320 with this stick, and it works an absolute treat. You can spend big money on heavy feeling sticks, but personally, I'm not sure the juice is worth the squeeze. Sitting here now, I feel like whatever you're going to buy for a home simulator, it isn't going to feel like the real aircraft. So for me, I'd prefer to look for price to performance. And I really do feel that this stick really delivers on price to performance. Now, remind me of this when I obviously inevitably cave and buy a joystick worth hundreds of pounds. But sitting here right now, I really think the sensible thing to do is to kind of throw 50, 60 quid at this, whatever you can find it for, and you've got a really solid stick and you can get simming and start enjoying the hobby. So when wrapping up these kinds of videos, I always try and ask myself, if this product were to go wrong tomorrow, outside of its warranty, would I buy another one? And for me, the answer is yes, I absolutely would. I've looked at more expensive sticks with the heavy feeling bases and the custom Airbus grips, and the cost goes up and up and up really quickly. Or the alternative is I could spend another £60, maybe even less, and get another one of these here tomorrow and be flying again with my wallet fully intact. And when it comes to recommending it to others, especially those getting into the hobby, it's almost a no-brainer. It gives you a ton of features, everything you need to get going for a really, really great price. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I'll try and get back to you. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching. Take the very best care of yourselves, and as always, happy flying.